Okay, so like for our project we're doing, we're like kind of, there's like a program called Road Trip Nation, and what they do is they go out. It's like a group of people that go out and kind of look at different people's like occupations. Where do you work? Like, do you work for a certain company or?
I have a practice in Fountain Valley off of Brookhurst, and it's just me. It's my practice for marriage and family.
Does that have like a name?
It's just under my name, Sean Rattan, marriage and family therapist. So it's like a private practice as compared to like a group practice.
Is it like stressful to deal with different people's like cases of like what they're going through?
Yeah, it's like there's a high suicide rate for psychologists and also dentists. I'm not really sure what that's about. But I got lucky when I started in my early 20s. I had some good mentors, and they told me right away that if I was working at a hospital, and they said whatever you're doing at the hospital or you're talking with clients, you have to leave it there. You might take it in the car, you might process as you're going home, but before you leave your car, you have to learn to turn off your mind and don't think about what's going on, and go home and distract yourself and have a hobby.
Do you have like a fun part of your job? Like, do you have any fun parts?
Well, the fun part would be like seeing that I'm helping somebody and they're making progress, and they went from not knowing where they're going to go in their life and being depressed to being, happy and making some big changes in their life. So it's nice to know that I was a part of that to help them on that way. That's probably the fun part. As far as anything really exciting, you hear different stories all the time, so some people might look at that as interesting. I don't know if it's exciting, but it's interesting where you talk to people from all walks of life, and you just hear all kinds of different types of stories.
When you say that you help families, is it usually like a wife, a husband, and 2 young kids, or is it like all grown up, like a grown-up family and dealing with?
Yeah. Well, when you're in private practice, first of all, you get to choose who you work with, and if you want to work with families or couples, marriages or individuals. When you work with the county, they pretty much just give you your cases and you have to take them. But so when I was starting in the field, I worked with kids, lots of kids and families. I did about 20 years of working with kids and families. So right now I do a lot of marriage counseling, not so much family counseling, meaning the parents and the kids. I do mostly marriage counseling, or I do individuals. So I see one person.
Do you get paid well, like, for being like a therapist, especially in private practice?
I pay myself, but I have to pay myself anything. No, but there's a couple things. One is therapists usually get paid by insurance, or they might charge their clients cash. When you're in a bad economy like right now, a lot of people don't have cash to pay you. So a lot of therapists who used to take cash in the past, like, they don't even have practices anymore because people just don't have the money. But I take insurance, so you have to go through this long 6-month to 2-year process of trying to get credentialed with insurance companies so they can pay you. And there's something that's called a managed care, and managed care, they pretty much limit what you can do with your clients, how many sessions you can have, and they limit the amount of pay. So they cut down the price of what a fee is if you get paid by insurance. And then if you work for the county or agency like that, so you can cut down another half. But people tend to like to go to private practice because that's where you can make the most, but you can really make the most if you don't take insurance and you're just straight cash pay.
What do you kind of do like around the office when there's no clients, or like, what do you kind of do, paperwork?
Well, in our field there's always lots of paperwork to do. There's always something to do. So we're always writing our notes, or we have something that's called a treatment plan. If the client comes in, it's what we're going to work with the client. And there's always billing to do.
Do you have like any interesting stories about like your job? Do you feel like you have any interesting stories about it?
Too many stories.
Really?
There are a lot of interesting stories. I've had stories, most of them are pretty sad. So, is there anything specifically you want to know?
Really, just something that you find interesting, or just anything interesting?
Find interesting? Well, I had a case when I was working in the hospital, and there was a client who needed some help, and she was like really afraid and just kind of making a lot of noise, and she was leaning over and looking up at the sky, and so I went to go help her, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she says, "Well, them." And I go, "Who's them?" And she's looking up at the, the ceiling. There's nothing there. She says, "The demons are trying to get me."
Oh my god.
And so I go, "Really?" I go, "So what do they look like?" And she said, "Oh, they look like this, and they have wings, and they have a scary face." And I said, "So why are they like following you? How come they're not following me?" So I just started talking to her, and I figured like, I'm going to see where this goes. So I said, "Let's go back to your room." I go, "Are the demons still following you?" She says, "Yeah." And she was really distressed, and my job is to kind of keep them calm. So I said, "Well, let's go down here." And so I go, "Are they still following us?" "Yeah." I go, "What do they look like? Do they have names?" And I started talking to her about it. And then we went in the room and I started talking to her. I was hoping that I could distract her. And I go, are there any of the demons here? She goes, "No, they're kind of going away." I go, "Let's just keep talking. They might all go away." And like within a minute, they went away. So it was a situation where, I didn't act surprised or say, "You're weird. Oh my gosh, what's going on here?"
Yeah.
I really just appealed to listening to her and gaining some trust with her, and then everything calmed down.
Is that is that what most, what therapy is about, is just kind of keeping the person calm and eventually leading them to wanting to work with their situation, or how does that?
Well, this really depends on the situation, but listening obviously is an important skill you have to have. And, there's so many different therapists, and there's different theories that we follow. You've heard of Freud?
Mm-mm.
No? Freud's probably they call it the father of psychology. And so he has some interesting theories that's where psychology started, but nowadays, where somebody would go to a therapist and they would lay on the couch and they would talk for hours and they would see this therapist for like 5 years. And that's called psychodynamic theory. But these days, with dealing with insurance, they don't want people to be on a therapist's couch for years because they're going to lose money. So therapy has become a little bit more goal-oriented. So I'm a solution-focused therapist. So when someone comes in and they have some issues or problems, I just identify what maybe 1, 2, or 3 goals that we can have, or a problem, to address their problem, and we set goals. And so we might take steps. I might give them homework to take home and practice, and they come back and we talk about how they go and did they make progress, and if they don't make progress, find out why. If they're really having trouble, you might send them to the psychiatrist for medication, because they might really be having severe anxiety or depression.
Do you feel in danger kind of with these people who are mentally they have something going?
In private practice, it's interesting because in order to see me, you have to have insurance, and so most people who have insurance work. So these are usually the people who are working are highly functional people. But when you work for the county or a clinic, that's usually not the case. A lot of people are not working; they're not high functioning. So there's a lot of cases where you do have, people thinking they're Jesus Christ or things like that. But it's interesting. Most of society believe that people who have mental illness, like schizophrenia and things like that, they're dangerous because they might see them down the street screaming or yelling. But that's the worst thing they do. They don't usually attack people. I used to be a social worker, and there were times where some of these kids were taken away, and I was in charge of monitoring the visit with the natural parent and the child. And so the parents come up to me and they think I'm the one who took the kid away, and so they're mad. They didn't want to beat me up or anything, but I was usually able to calm them down and gain their trust.
We kind of picked this topic since we're interested in it. Do you have any advice for future wise?
For in general, or pursuing psychology? Psychology. I think one of the most important things, obviously, having an interview and talking, not just talking to one person, probably talking to a female, maybe in private practice, maybe talk to somebody who's in the county or a social worker, so you get a better perspective.
It's funny because we actually did that. We've talked to a female social worker.
Mm-hmm. And you might want to talk to a teacher who maybe teaches psychology. Usually they have some experience with that. But I think one of the things I did when I was choosing my career is when I was going into business, I found somebody who was going into business and was an accountant, and I went and kind of spent the day with them and saw what they did. Well, that was really important because that wasn't me. I'm more of a people person, so I knew whatever I did, it needed to be with interacting with people, and not just a pencil and paper and four walls.
With troops coming home from Iraq and a bad economy, do you see a noticeable difference in the clients that come in for certain reasons?
Well, just to go back, you said military. Is there a reason you brought up the military?
I'm considering signing up for the Marines after I leave high school. It's something I feel I should do, and I've been hearing a lot about, like, 80% of the troops that come back have post-traumatic stress disorder, and I'm wondering, like, is that something some people are more predisposed? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you asked that because like 5 years ago, the military did contact me and they asked me to go to Germany and work with the families who were suffering because their spouse was over in Iraq dealing with war and stuff. And a lot of the problem, when I went over there, what I found out was, especially if people were married, there was a lot of issues where, the person's out there in Iraq comes back home and they don't know their kid, and they're trying to help them to get back into normal society. But as far as people who weren't married, I've had some cases where they've been through war, and when you're out in war, you're kind of, your brain's always alert, and so when you come back to normal society, it's hard to turn off the alertness, and so you exhibit a lot of symptoms of what we call hypervigilance, and hypervigilance is where you overreact to things that might happen, like loud noises and things like that.
Did you ever work with the military families? Did you end up doing that?
Yeah, I did work with the military family. I work with military families now who, some of them are stationed here or they come back, and there's a lot of marital issues and infidelity and physical violence that happens, and it's not to blame the soldiers for that. It's the environment at their end and the level of stress that they deal with, and when they come home, it's so highly conflictual that it's hard for families to kind of like feel stabilized and get back together, and try to get to that place because there's so much time in between from not seeing each other, and then when they see each other, one person's stressed, they don't really remember who that person was, and they come back a different person. So it's just a lot of different variables.
Did you ever work with somebody who's, do you feel like being a family and marriage therapist has helped your like family home? Do you feel like it just is a good, like, it just helps since you
Well, it can be helpful and it can be not good. Therapists usually, I don't think maybe they think too much, and so that sometimes can hurt their family where they think like they know everything. And so in a marriage, we really can't be the one who knows everything. But as far as like positive, I work with kids a lot. So I work, from 4 years old who have like depression and little kids who want to kill themselves to, teenagers. So as far as dealing with my kids, I'm definitely, like over-prepared in dealing with my kids. Because when they're going through something, I have like 25 years knowing how to talk to kids and how to approach them differently, how to have patience. So that's one positive way. But just because I know how to take care of my kids, I can't tell my wife that I know better than her.
Yeah.
So if you're not smart that way, then you get in a lot of trouble.
How do you like approach kids at like your job? Do you just sit them down and kind of talk to them, or do you do any like activities with them? Or?
Well, in any therapy session, the first important thing is to kind of build rapport with them. So you want to kind of find out who they are and find out what they like to do. This, instead of like they come in and say, well, your parent says you're bad, and you curse at them, why do you do that? That's not going to work. You have to build trust first. So just talking to them and hearing what they're about, and to know that you're really there to help them, not to like punish them. And so that's the most important thing with working with kids, teens, and adults too, but definitely teens.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it?
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.